Okay.
So this one was Standard 3, Learning Environments.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much classroom management using interactive technologies, verbal and nonverbal communications of respect, and kind of fostering trust and having a student-centered classroom are the main targets.
Right.
And I did our Monday sight word lesson, which we do every week.
Right.
Which is pretty important, built into the curriculum, and follows the Dolch sight words. They have 10 a week, and yeah, it's a pretty important lesson. And kind of can be a little bit boring. I'm trying to make it more interesting. So the first thing I tried to do was incorporate interactive technology, which was a game that let them work with each other to review old sight words, and it maximized my time because I got to work independently with one of the kids while the other kids worked together for review. So it didn't really do anything with local or global communities, but I think it was a good way to use the computer for teaching.
Right.
What do you think?
All right, so yeah, I agree. You did well in having managed your time well, given coming up with something interactive for two of the other boys to do while you're working, and able to give one of the other students individual time with the sight words. So I'd say proficient, only because of the outstanding calls for local and global communities, and we couldn't do that on that one.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go with proficient on that one.
Yeah, and it gave them a chance to work together too.
Oh, that's another thing. Yeah, they seem to be working well together.
And with the different kids, two of them, they pick everything up really fast, and one of them needs a little bit more time and effort, and it's hard to do on your own. So maybe if there were more ways to do little activities like that keep the other kids occupied, but get a chance to really focus on the kids who need the focus.
Right, and it also helped you, I think, because they seemed to be real like they were really into whatever they were doing on the computer, that little game. So
Yeah.
they weren't bothering anyone either. They were working together. You could see they were interested in what was going on at that point. So.
And even for the kids who were working with the flashcards, I think it kind of gives them incentive to just stay with it because they know that once they're done, they're going to go get to play the game.
Right.
It makes everything fun instead of just a kind of a drag.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. The next was like verbal and nonverbal communication, which I tried to do a good amount of, high fives and some of just our regular classroom motions. I guess it elicits from the kids what I expect them to do. Things like, raising your hand and covering your mouth, or in the beginning going over just, try your best.
Right.
Some of the other, being able to point out, capitals with the salute, which we do, keeps the kids on point. And I tried to get that in there as much as possible.
Because I would say it was outstanding, because from the beginning they seem to be trained in what they're expected to do. You have them putting their hands up, and then before you even start the lesson, you get them prepared, making sure that they have your attention, and getting them to settle down. Before you start anything, you had them settle down and everything to get their full attention and start the lesson.
Or at the table too, like hands up on the lap.
Yeah, that was another one.
With the pencils.
Right. And then whenever they got up to go, I guess it was snack time, instead of just saying sit down, and then you just had talked to them about what they were going to be doing. Oh, well, you did. You talked to them about what they were going to be doing with their family.
Yeah.
For homework. But before you even said that, you had them, they were standing up and they had lost their attention, but you told them to sit down, and then you waited till they sat down before you started telling them what was the focus on their afternoon homework stuff.
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to kind of interpret the family cultural background in differing perspectives, especially when they're this young and it's such a small class. So instead of focusing too much on that, more just a lot of verbal and nonverbal recognition of the kids to kind of make them feel respected,
right,
and to make them feel like they were doing a good job, and to keep them on point, on task.
Yeah. And you did real well with that, I saw. So I mean, I'd say outstanding, even though we without that, I'd still say it was outstanding, because the kids seem
respected.
Yeah.
I hope. Cool. The next was the classroom organization and time. So I tried to, it's a short lesson, and that's a lot to do in one lesson, but I tried to keep them moving and tried to use the small space well, instead of having them just sit in the same spot at the desk the whole time.
Right.
Start at the mat, move into 2 pods, and then move into their regular kind of like writing work stations, but all in about 25 minutes.
Yeah, and so for that, I'd say, and you moved them around real well. Like, it was really fluid. Like, you had them in the at the carpet, kind of as a starting point. And it was, you moved them around. Like, it was very fluid, like the way they moved. I like that. They seem to be used to that, which is good. Let me think.
I think some of the writing the sentences collaboratively is a new thing that we're just trying out. So they're not totally used to that yet. So I think given more practice, they'll probably get the routines down better. But the routines we do have, they do pretty solidly. We managed to get quite a bit done in pretty short periods of time.
And I think that's a good idea. That's a great idea, because once they move over to DD2 and they're starting, because we're doing sentences like on a daily basis, but I try not to help them out as much. And I think in DD1, if they're already doing sentences, it gives them each other kind of a drive to, not to be better than the other, but okay, if they're doing it, I'll do it,
Yeah. And we're I'm trying to transition them from just writing sentences is the goal, which is what it kind of is at the beginning. If they can write a sentence, that's great. And I'll kind of hold their hand and walk them through it.
Right.
But trying to transition them more into being able to write and edit their own sentences.
Yeah.
Or make sentences collaboratively, different ways to write sentences and check their own sentences. So I hope the time,
No, I think you managed the time real well. And you didn't just go into writing sentences, which I saw. So I'd say outstanding, because you started by introducing the sight words, kind of doing a little flash game with them, speed, all that, and then you had your interactive game, and then you had them on individual sides, like one-on-one, where they could practice. You even had a game there. And then not only that, then from there you went into the sentences, and you still work together with the sentences.
Yeah, and sentences are even for the curriculum and the sight word, like they're not really expected to do sentences in that lesson.
Yeah, I know.
So, but it's kind of important in the way we have everything set up.
Right.
And they're capable of doing it. So, trying to make the lesson go at a fast enough pace that there's still time to do sentences can be challenging, but they're pretty good at it.
Right,
I think by the end they had the sight words, and we review them every day after that. That's pretty much the intro. But they had the sight words down enough to go into sentences, which I think means hopefully the time was used effectively.
Yeah, it seemed that way.
Next was a student-centered classroom. That one's a little bit harder to do with these kids, and especially with something like sight words. But, I tried to give them chances to, even when we're just drilling the flashcards on the mat, try to put it in a sentence. Like, it's a red button, it's a green button, letting the kids kind of make their own little sentences, with a little bit of help. But I think that helps make the sight words stick, because if you just treat them like words, they don't really remember.
Right. Yeah, I saw, and you gave each, you picked the student to choose one of the sight words, and because the students also, you could tell, and even if it wasn't just that student that picked it, but you knew that maybe as a group, they won't all be able to make a sentence with that. You help them guide away from like the much more difficult words to something that they could all do together.
Sure. And I tried to, focus on the individual kids by, if there was a word they couldn't read, letting another kid pick it up, give them, compliment the kid who couldn't read it for doing a good job, but then once somebody else could read the word, going back to them, having them read it, and then giving them praise on it.
Right.
Again, so if they got there in the end, making sure they felt good. Been trying to do the collaborative sentences more, where they kind of come up with a sentence together, and checking each other's work, which I think we just said before we turned on the recorder.
Right.
To kind of stop them when they get older from checking each other's work and pointing out mistakes, like mistakes are bad. But at the very beginning, kind of trying to collaborate on editing, where finding a mistake is something that we say thank you to our friend for finding. So it's not something that look at that teacher.
Yeah. I'd say on this an outstanding. You had them. Because not only did they work together at the beginning with making the sentences and editing each other, but also because you were you gave them a bit of guidance, like I said earlier, about you knew what words might be easier for a whole group to discuss. So they all worked collaboratively, putting the sentences together, and then they independently as well when they went back and did their own sentences.
Yeah, I tried to think of it as flashcards on the mat, collaborative, separated when they're doing their flashcards independently with me, doing it independently. Same using the computer collaboratively, but then going to sentences, writing a sentence collaboratively and writing a sentence independently. So trying to take from what we did together to use when we did things individually. Right. Like words we couldn't read, having our friends read it for us on the mat, but then when we're doing flashcards alone, kind of being expected to be able to read all the words. Making a sentence together, kind of, okay, this is a good word to choose. This is how we make a sentence into independently. Making a sentence by yourself. Same with editing somebody else's work. Once you get the sense for editing somebody else's work, being able to look at something you just wrote and edited.
Yeah, too. Right. It gives you the idea of where your own mistakes are as well.
Because it's easier to find mistakes in somebody else's work than it is in your own. Because you go, I just wrote this, it's fine.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody else's work, you're really, So more fine-tooth comb was what I was going for. The last one was a little harder. I think creating a positive learning environment and openness, respect, and support is good. I think always saying thank you to each other for help. I try to give the kids a lot of respect and support as much as I can. Incorporating families is tough. So sending the sight words home to work with the families, and I can check with them later if they're doing it together. Is an attempt to do that, but it's hard to incorporate families.
Yeah. I mean, with the homework, you did have that, and then you gave them the idea that if they do need help, that they can ask Mom and Dad, please help me with this. Kind of open up a dialogue with them, Mom and Dad as well. And I saw that you did praise them constantly. When they did the great things, good job individually as well. You did the whole high fives and everything, giving them the good, positive environment there. And again, when you went back, you had everyone kind of made it a funny way, okay, remember we raise our hand and we have to be quiet. They had a little fun with that, but they understand that it's respect each other's, when it's their time to speak, everyone else should remain quiet. And it seemed a very positive environment.
I always try to keep those rules there, but kind of light. Because we know it. We know it, not having to be super serious about what the expectations are. Right. Because the kids know it, and so they can be silly with some of those, talking about the rules, because we all know it. Yeah. We all know we know it, so we can be silly. But when it comes time to actually, following the rules is serious. But we know we're going to do it, is the vibe I try to go for.
No, and it worked out well, I think. So I'd say outstanding for that as well.
The family was tough.
Besides the family, but you did give them the homework, and you did tell them what they could ask Mom and Dad for help, how to ask for help. We talk to them all the time about asking Mom and Dad for help. We do talk to them a lot about that. You had them sitting down. When it was time to be quiet, they were there quiet and doing their thing, but you also consistently were praising them, telling them great job, even with the flash game. After you had the reinforcement where they'd read the words after you'd gone practice with them, each word, great job, good, and it kept that whole, that whole drive. They didn't go down at all. They kept moving further and further with that praise, which was very helpful to them. I'd still say outstanding.
Well, thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.